All right, everyone, welcome. Today we'll be looking at 2.1, the start of chapter 2. So let's just go ahead and dive into it. So, chapter 2 is it's about linear equations and functions and transformations and graphing and that kind of thing. I think it's just got to do with linear equations. Actually, to be honest, I've forgotten what most of chapter 2 is about, but I'll get there. All right, so today, anyway, let's not worry about that. Let's worry about today. So today we're going to be finding the slope. All right, remember you don't want to write this. You should write like 2.1 this. All right. We're going to find some slopes given a graph, given 2 points, given a line and slope intercept form. That one's the easiest, by the way. And then we'll find an equation of the line given 2 points and different things. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So find the slope given a graph. Now slope is defined as rise over run, right? This is like slope. And it's defined as like a rational number, like a fraction, where the numerator is like how far up and down the the graph has gone, and the denominator is like how far left and right the graph has gone. So basically, you pick some point, and what you want to do, you don't want to pick a point like right here, right? And the reason you don't want to pick that point is you want to be as accurate as possible, right? If you picked this point, you'd have to guess where you were on the x-axis and guess where you were on the y-axis, and you don't want to guess. So you want to pick a point that is exactly on one of these cross sections on a grid. So like this is a point that is exactly crossing, as far as my eyes can tell, that spot on the graph. And this is, 1, 2, 3, comma 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is 3, comma 9, right? That's not all that necessary for finding just the slope, but just to get you guys back into ordered pair format here. So what you want to do is you want to look for another point that is like exactly on one of the cross sections. And I'll say that this one is pretty dang close. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, comma 2. All right. So rise over run. What you want to do is this is looking at like the y direction, and this is like the x direction. And if you look at the coordinate, like the coordinate plane here, going up in the y direction is like a positive number, and going down in the y direction is like a negative number. And then on the y or in the x direction, going right is a positive number and going left is a negative number. So if you're going to count the rise over run here, you would go down, right? So you do up and down first, that's like rising and falling. So you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you go down 7. And since you went down, it's a negative number. And then you go right 1, 2, 3. And since you're going right, that's a positive number for the x's. All right, so going right is positive for x, going left is negative for x, going up is positive for y, going down is negative for y. All right, sorry if this is all like super basic. All right, I'm always going to teach as if you're completely new to the subject, unless I've already taught that specific thing, and then I'll act like you know it. So here, since we went down 7 and right 3, the slope would be negative 7 over 3. And that would be your slope. And slope is given the variable m most often. So your slope is equal to negative 7 over 3. Rise over run. Okay? That's how you do problems like this. Now, to find the slope given 2 points, excuse me for just a second. To find the slope given 2 points, so here's your first ordered pair, and the 1's here indicate that it is the first ordered pair, and the 2's here indicate that this is the second ordered pair. So this is the x coordinate, like this is the x of the first ordered pair, the y of the first ordered pair, the x of the second ordered pair, the y of the second ordered pair. All right, when you have two ordered pairs here, like we had two ordered pairs up here, the slope between those 2 points always follows this formula, and I'm sure you've heard of this. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. I'm sure you guys remember this from Algebra 1. And that is equal to your slope, m. Right, so if we wanted to go back up here and show that this formula holds true, we could. So if you had, we'll do this real quick. So here, we'll let this be our first ordered pair, all right? And that has, x sub 1, y sub 1, and that's 3, 9. And then this is our second ordered pair. And so that'd be like x sub 2, y sub 2, and that's 6, 2. So if we use the formula, y sub 2 minus y sub 1, that would be 2 minus 9. And then in the denominator of the formula, it is x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So that is the 6 minus 3. And if you simplify this, 2 minus 9 is negative 7. And 6 minus 3 is 3. And so we end up with exactly the same thing, whether you count it or whether you just use the ordered pairs. And the advantage to this formula here is that you don't need to see the graph to figure out the rise over run if they give you the 2 points. Basically, it saves you having to graph the points. You can just use the formula. All right, so let's go ahead and do that again here. So it actually doesn't matter whether you call this the first ordered pair or this the first ordered pair, right? Just make a decision and stay consistent and you'll end up with the same answer. I know it seems weird, but you will. So I'm going to let this be the first ordered pair. So this is x sub 1, y sub 1. That's the x coordinate for the first ordered pair, the y coordinate for the first ordered pair. And then this is x sub 2, y sub 2. And now I'm going to use the formula y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. By the way, you'll have to memorize this for any quizzes or tests in the future. This is such a basic formula that's so fundamental in math that I'm not going to be giving it to you on any test. You'll have to have it memorized. So I'm just going to directly plug in my values. So y sub 2 minus y sub 1, that is the negative 1 minus a negative 1. That's important, by the way. The minus sign, it's y sub 2, and you're directly substituting negative 1 into that. So that becomes negative 1. Then you still have a minus sign here, and then your y sub 1 is negative 1 again. So you have a minus and then another negative number here. All right, don't forget about that. A lot of students will just write negative 1 minus 1 and then call it good when that's not correct. So then next you've got x sub 2 minus x sub 1, and that is 2 minus 9. And then you simplify. You've got negative 1 plus 1, which is 0, over 2 minus 9, which is negative 7. Now, anytime 0 is in the numerator and it's not in the denominator, your answer is 0. 0 divided by anything except for 0 is 0. All right? So this has a slope of 0. And it should make sense because if you plotted these on a number line, or on a, not a number line, if you plotted these on a coordinate plane, your first point is at 9 comma negative 1. So that's like way over here, and then negative 1. So maybe right there. So that's 9 and negative 1. And then your next point is at 2, negative 1. So I say that's 2, and this is negative 1. So it should make sense that like you have a horizontal line here. It doesn't have, like, its slope is not some like value. It's not going up and it's not going down. It's just going straight. We call that a zero slope. That's something that we'll mention is that horizontal lines have zero slope. Okay, so let's move on. You guys try to work out this one. So go ahead and pause the video. Try to work out the slope of the slope between these two lines, or these 2 points, excuse me. All right, let's see if you're right. So you've got y sub 2, and I'm going to treat this as the second ordered pair, and this is the first ordered pair. And so we're going to have negative 5 minus 1 over 6 minus negative 4. That's y sub 2 minus y sub 1, and x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And then simplify. That's negative 6 over 10, and that is our answer reduced. And there's your slope. All right. All right, let's move on. Now, this is like super duper easy. Find slope given an equation in slope-intercept form. They don't call it slope-intercept form for no reason. You guys, I'm sure, are familiar with y equals mx plus b. Whether it be, your level of familiarity may be different, but like from student to student. But I'm sure many, like all of you, have at least vaguely heard of y equals mx plus b. And they try to drill it into your head in Algebra 1. So the reason this is called slope-intercept form is because it's given to you in a form where it immediately can tell you the slope and the y-intercept. So this is the y-intercept, and this is the slope. All right? So all you got to do is you look at the problem, and if it is in this form where it's y equals some number, x, and then some other number, then that is in slope-intercept form. So you're looking. Y equals 1/2 x minus 4. Well, the 1/2 in this case is your m, and the minus 4 is your b. So, so your slope on this first problem is just 1/2. The number in front of the x here. And then this would be your y-intercept. The reason why this form is so widely used is because it's like a really convenient, quick form for an equation that helps you graph a line very quickly. Then looking over here, these two values are important. That's your m and that's your b. So your slope is, I know it's like a number we're not super familiar with, decimals, but it's just the number in front of the x is the slope, so it's 0.01. That's your slope. And then your y-intercept would be 34.85. All right? Don't let your brain make it be more complicated than it actually is. Now you guys try these and see if you can figure out the slope. It doesn't take much time. It's just immediately your eyes just see the value and that's it. So write these down and pick out the slope. So those two numbers there are the slopes. So you got your slope is -3, and your slope is the square root of the quantity 34 over 5. That's it. All right, so let's do something different here. Here they tell you the slope, and they tell you a point that your line passes through, and they ask you to write an equation of the line. All right, so you guys go ahead and write that down. Okay, so the equation we're looking for is that y equals mx plus b. And right now we know the slope is 1, so we know that m is 1. So you can just go ahead and put that in for m. So y equals 1x plus b. Now, if you scroll back up and you look at these other equations in slope-intercept form, you still see y and x, y and x, y and x, y and x, right? So in your equation, a lot of students have trouble really getting this down. On your equation, you're also going to have a y and an x. So you don't need to plug anything in for y and x, but what you do need to plug in things for is m and b. Right? You need to plug stuff in for those two things. So here, we have found our m, and it is 1. And what we don't know is what b is, right? Once we figure out what b is, then we will be all set. So that's our goal right now, all right? So our goal is to find b. So we found m, they gave it to us, and now we have to find b. Now, a lot of students are like, oh, the y-intercept, this must be it, so just plug 3 in for b. But that's not true. All right, this is not a y-intercept. This is the value of y when x equals 5. A y-intercept is the value of y on your graph when your x is 0, right? So what we want to do here instead is use this ordered pair to help us find b. They wouldn't have given it to us for no reason, right? So this is a valid x coordinate, but it outputs to this y coordinate. So what you want to do is you want to plug 5 in for x and 3 in for y and solve for b. That's what you want to do. So plug in 5 for x and 3 for y. So I plugged in 3 for the y, right? And then I'm plugging in 5 for x, and I'm solving for b. Okay, so solve this equation for b. You get 3 equals 5 plus b, and then you subtract 5 from both sides, and you get that b equals -2, or -2 equals b. All right, so now we have found what b is, right? So because of this, right, b equals -2. And now that we know that b equals -2, just plug that in for this b. So your equation is y equals your m, which is 1, I told you that up here, x, and then it would be like plus b, but since b is negative, it'll be -2. All right, that may have been a little, quite a bit to wrap your head around, so we'll probably do another here. All right, so you notice that they gave you your slope, so you plug that in for m. You use your x and your y to plug that in, find b, and then rewrite it out, right? So if I were you, I would actually write down those steps, all right? Like in the side of your notebook or something. Like on this problem, it was plug slope in for m, then find b by plugging the ordered pairs x and y into your slope-intercept form, find b, then rewrite. Okay? Next, and this is the last thing before the homework, find the equation of the line that passes through these 2 points. So this is slightly different from the last problem. Here we are supposed to find an equation that passed through 1 point and the slope. Now the slope is a key part of what we need to do this problem. So we need the slope and we need a point. All right, so, well, I don't know about need, but for you guys, we'll need the slope and we'll need the point. So they don't give us the slope here. They just give us 2 points. But remember, back a couple of examples, we know how to find the slope given 2 points. We did that right here. Find the slope given 2 points, right? So that's what we're going to do. Right? We're going to use this method to find the slope given the 2 points. Then, once you have the slope, you now have the slope and at least 1 point, and you'll do this way. So it's like 2 problems in one. First, find the slope. So we'll say this is our first point, and this is our second point. So you've got y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. That's your slope. So find m. And so this is going to be -1 minus 7 over 10 minus 12. That's y sub 2 minus y sub 1, -1 minus 7, and x sub 2 minus x sub 1, 10 minus 12. And that's going to get you -8 over -2, and that simplifies into 4. Now that we know the slope, you want to set up like the bare bones of your slope-intercept form. All right, here's your, I'm reserving this spot for my answer. Y equals mx plus b, so where m is 4, x, and we don't know the b yet. All right, so we need to find b. So to find b, remember, you've got y equals 4x plus b. You just plug in. Now, last time on the last example, we had 1 point. Now we have 2 points. So you're thinking maybe to yourself, well, I don't know which point to use to plug in for x and y. And my response is it doesn't matter. All right, both of these points are on the line, so either one will get you the right answer. So I'm going to choose the 10 negative 1 because why not? So I'm going to plug 10 in for x and I'm going to plug negative 1 in for y. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So you've got your 10, whoa, never mind. You've got your negative 1 in for y. I'm going to go ahead and do it like in yellow. Negative 1 for y equals 4, and then you're plugging in 10 for x. That was a terrible parenthesis. And then you're going to add b. So I plugged in 10 for x. I don't want to go through my box here. I plugged 10 in for x, and I plugged negative 1 in to y. Okay? And now you solve this for b. And so you're going to have negative 1 equals 40 plus b. Subtract 40 from both sides. And you're going to get that b equals negative 41. And so back up here in your answer, that goes here, negative 41. All right, this is it's kind of a complicated process, but nothing in the process is all that difficult mathematically. So once you can remember the steps, you should find it not so bad. This is just like solving a two-step equation. This is like just can you plug in numbers and simplify a fraction, right? So once you can get the steps down, you'll be fine. All right, so here's your homework. Go ahead and pause the video so you can see the homework, or look on Google Classroom and you will see, or whatever other video or whatever other homework service I'm using, and see the homework. All right, hopefully you guys have learned something, and there's your homework, so have at it.